Link TV, connecting you to the world. Link TV is viewer supported. Watch more at linktv.org.
Link TV presents Mosaic World News from the Middle East. Here are today's top stories.
The U.S. stops pushing Israel to freeze settlements. Repercussions in the Ivory Coast after the president refuses to turn over power. And in Syria, harvest season means celebration. Mosaic World News from the Middle East begins now.
إعلان عن الفشل مبطن بعبارات دبلوماسية ذلك الذي حمله نعي واشنطن لمحاولات المضي قدما.
Washington's announcement of its failure was loaded with diplomatic terms as it discussed efforts to move the peace process between Palestinians and Israelis forward. The announcement was made by State Department spokesman Philip Crowley, who said the American administration had given up on its efforts to convince Israel to freeze settlement construction in Palestinian regions. Crowley clarified that the American strategy has not changed, but its tactics have. He added that the administration has invited Palestinian and Israeli negotiators to Washington to look into what he described as a new approach to negotiations that would focus on the fundamental problems of the conflict.
خلف تخلي واشنطن عن سعيها لإقناع إسرائيل بتجميد الاستيطان.
Washington giving up on its attempt to convince Israel to freeze settlement construction has relieved many in Israel, most notably the settlers. As for the Palestinian side, it is disappointed and accused the Israeli government of not giving peace in the Middle East a real opportunity due to its refusal to give the United States a clear response to the settlement freeze proposal. Sharouk Assad from Ramallah.
شروق أسعد من رام الله.
Israelis, especially settlers, are relieved that the U.S. has retreated from international efforts to freeze settlement construction.
Since the U.S. administration has now officially announced it is halting its efforts, now is Netanyahu's opportunity to continue construction of the West Bank and Jerusalem settlements.
Of course, the Palestinians are mainly disappointed. Washington's announcement is seen as the American president's abandoning his promise to the Palestinians while rewarding Israel and accepting its conditions, instead of supporting the foundations of the peace process and international legitimacy.
The role the American sponsor is playing is really disappointing, really disappointing. The U.S. knows who is causing the problem. The problem is caused by Israel. And as a sponsor of the peace process, if the U.S. is unable to make one of the sides abide by its obligations, then how can it maintain credibility to be part of the process and accomplish anything, even if negotiations were to lead to the peace process?
Once the Palestinian president returns from Greece, he will start a series of Arab and internal consultations that include the Liberation Organization and the Fatah Central Committee to consider all the options. The last option could be the solving power, but the first one is to rally international support for the Palestinian state on the 1967 borders and take the case to the Security Council. This, as Washington insists on inviting both the Palestinian and Israeli sides to confer in Washington.
The United States is unable to play the role of a neutral mediator. It is unable to be a sponsor. So it can now only send an invitation for rapprochement talks. This is like asking to become engaged after the marriage has failed. It's very comical. Another option is required. The Palestinian Liberation Organization needs to take two steps. First, it needs to immediately announce the state, its borders, and capital as a reality. Then ask the countries of the world to recognize it, the way Brazil and Argentina did. Second, a united national Palestinian meeting should be held to decide on one national collective strategy that unites us instead of divides.
So the American position has caused official and public Palestinian disappointment, and the Palestinians are now considering their options, including taking the case to the Security Council and investing in the support of the international community.
Israeli residents of Judea and Samaria reacted with satisfaction to the American announcement that Washington is giving up on efforts to convince Israel to freeze construction in the territories. The settlement movement said that now is the time to renew building.
If now the Americans are dropping their requirement for a freeze, then maybe that should be an indication for Prime Minister Netanyahu to allow building in Judea and Samaria according to the need of the population here.
America has no business telling Israel which is a sovereign nation, what to do in its own country. That's why I think it's a good decision.
And I think President Obama realized that, as indicated by a speech that he had made in the United Nations, that the other Arab states were not interested. He expressed disappointment with the fact that other interests within the Middle East did not help him achieve his goal of developing a Palestinian state.
And staying with Washington's announcement that it's giving up efforts to convince Israel to implement a settlement freeze, a short time ago, former Ambassador Jorm Ettinger told IBA's Leah Zinder that Washington will now have to reassess its entire Middle East policy.
Well, in my mind, it's a symptom of a reassessment on the part of the Obama administration, reassessment as a result of a total meltdown of President Obama's policy towards the Middle East, not only vis-à-vis Israel and the Palestinians, but overall in the Middle East, as in fact highlighted by many of the WikiLeaks documents. We have seen the Obama administration claiming that there is no such thing as Islamic terrorism, no such thing as global terrorism. And here we have the documents which show that Islamic terrorism has engulfed the world. We have seen Obama administration claiming or contending that Saudi Arabia is an ally of the U.S. And here are the documents shedding light that Saudi Arabia is the top financier of global Islamic terrorism. And we have seen the Obama administration claiming that there is a linkage between the Palestinian issue on one hand and Middle East turbulence and anti-American terrorism on the other hand. And once again, we have seen, according to the documents, that Arab leaders have pleaded with the U.S., please forget about the Palestinian issue, deal with Iran.
If, as you say, this is a meltdown of the U.S. policies in the Middle East, then what do you anticipate will happen next?
Well, I don't want to second guess or outguess the Obama administration advisors. I am afraid that the president and his advisors are ideologues who are not going to change their attitude, to change their policy, and therefore they will persist in preoccupying themselves with the tumbleweeds, such as the Palestinian issue, and therefore sacrifice the stability of the region due to the smothering sandstorms which are engulfing us. Here we have an administration spending so much time with the Palestinian issue, while in fact there is a potential volcano coming out of Iraq next year when the Americans will evacuate Iraq. The Americans are dealing with the Palestinian issue at the expense of dealing with the Iranian nuclear threat. Same thing with Egypt. Mubarak is on his way out of Egypt. Everything is possible in Egypt, anyway, from another Mubarak all the way to a Khomeini in Egypt. If there will be a Khomeini or something in between, this would be another volcano in the Middle East, all of which are independent of, irrespective of the Palestinian issue.
A letter signed by 50 state-appointed rabbis forbidding Jews to rent or sell property to non-Jews was widely condemned today. The rabbis who signed the letter claim that their aim is to protect the Jewish identity of the state. Speaking last night at the National Bible Contest, Prime Minister Netanyahu denounced the initiative, saying it was racist and undemocratic and has no place in the Jewish state. The Association for Civil Rights in Israel called on the Prime Minister to take disciplinary action against the rabbis who are employed by the state.
Palestinian sources announced that the Israeli occupation army has demolished homes and barnyards in the village of Karibat Tana, east of the West Bank city of Nablus, under the pretext that they lacked proper building permits. The sources added that the occupation's bulldozers demolished the village school, as well as residents' homes and barnyards. This is the third time the occupation forces carried out demolition orders in the village. In another development, the Asian Gaza Solidarity Convoy arrived in the Iranian city of Zahedan. The convoy, which includes international activists, is expected to continue its journey via Iranian territories to Turkey and Syria, and then to the Egyptian port of Arish. It is expected to arrive in the Gaza Strip on December 27th, which coincides with the second anniversary of the Israeli aggression on Gaza.
The Asian convoy has set off on a humanitarian journey from the Far East to break the Israeli siege imposed on Gaza and its people.
As everyone knows, what is happening in Gaza is an injustice. Through our journey in these countries, we are trying to make our voices heard, pleading to the world to help rescue the people of Gaza.
The convoy moved from India to Pakistan, but due to security concerns, it was sent back to the Indian capital, where members took a flight to Iran. After stopping for a few days in Iran, the convoy will continue its journey to the Egyptian territory of Arish, passing through Turkey and Syria. The convoy is expected to arrive at Gaza Gate on December 27th, coinciding with the second anniversary of the Israeli entity's aggression on Gaza. The march, thousands of kilometers long, started small, but it continues to grow as it moves closer to its final destination. More than 137 international non-governmental agencies and organizations are taking part in the convoy.
I joined the convoy in India. Some of our friends are expected to join the convoy in Syria. We are carrying financial, medical, and food aid to our brothers in Gaza.
The Asian convoy will not be the last convoy expressing solidarity with the people of Gaza. As long as Gaza's children remain under siege, some around the world with consciences will continue to fight in the name of humanity. Huda al-Magor from the city of Zahedan in eastern Iran.
Another bloody day for U.S.-led forces in Afghanistan. 2 foreign soldiers have been killed in southern Afghanistan. Meanwhile, the Taliban claim their men have shot down a U.S. helicopter in the east, killing 17 American soldiers. Press TV's correspondent in Kabul, Faiz Khurshid, gives us more on the latest incidents there.
The U.S. soldiers were on patrol when they were ambushed by the Taliban militants. It happened in the south, the main stronghold of the Taliban militants. NATO has confirmed this, saying 2 foreign soldiers were killed. They have not disclosed the nationalities of the slain soldiers. In the south, American, British, and Canadian soldiers are stationed, and the Taliban say that with such attacks, they want to make the foreign troops in Afghanistan remain inside their bases. In the meantime, the Taliban claim that they have brought down a U.S. helicopter in eastern Lugar province. They say that 17 American soldiers on board have been killed. No word yet on this from the U.S. military, but the U.S. military men here in Kabul only say that the helicopter made an emergency landing.
Press TV's Faiz Khurshid in Kabul. Meanwhile, the Afghan Defense Ministry has condemned an airstrike by foreign forces that left at least 2 Afghan soldiers dead and 5 others wounded. The incident took place in the Chargh district of Logar province on Tuesday. Local officials say the Afghan soldiers were hit as they were returning from an anti-Taliban operation. Most foreign soldiers in the province are American. NATO has declined to comment on the incident. A NATO spokeswoman says a fact-finding team has been dispatched. Civilian casualties and killings of Afghan security forces in the so-called friendly fires have been a frequent source of tension between the Afghan government and foreign forces.
A bomb explosion has killed at least 18 people in northwest Pakistan. The bomb went off at Tara Market in the city of Kohat in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Several other people were injured in the attack. No group or person has claimed responsibility for the bombing yet. Kohat has been hit by several deadly bomb attacks this year. One of the worst attacks took place at a mosque in early November, killing over 50 people and injuring about 100 more.
ونعود إلى موضوع الاحتجاجات على نتائج انتخابات مجلس الشعب في مصر ومعي.
Let's return to the protests of the results of the People's Assembly elections in Egypt. Joining us from Alexandria is advisor Mahmoud al-Huderi, lawyer and former deputy chief of the Court of Cassation. Professor Huderi, first of all, is there no possibility for the Supreme Judicial Council to protest what is referred to as fraud in the Egyptian elections in a different way?
لا هو طبعا مجلس القضاء ليس من سلطته هذه أن يحتج على.
Of course not. The Judicial Council does not have the authority to protest the elections. However, in reality, the Supreme Judicial Council should have monitored and approved the process of the elections. The Council did not get the opportunity to do so. It should have been presented with the names and with the charges paid by all those who participated in the elections. This is a very sensitive issue that stems from the need not to place the judicial system under financial constraints.
Okay, Mr. Mahmoud, isn't there a concern that the Supreme Judicial Council will be accused of not fulfilling its national duties?
The Council did not take a clear and sincere position on this issue. The Council is supposed to protect and safeguard the integrity and independence of the judiciary. It needs to be portrayed as such, and we hope to God that it will be in the upcoming period.
The Economic Community of West African States suspended the membership of the Ivory Coast after outgoing President Laurent Gbagbo refused to voluntarily hand over authority to his rival Alassane Ouattara.
The political crisis in the Ivory Coast is escalating. Outgoing President Laurent Gbagbo, who was sworn in for a second term, formed a government to battle his competitor Alassane Ouattara, ignoring the international community's call for a peaceful transition of power. Officials in the new government gave their statements to media in a tone the opposition sees as provocative.
We have a number of problems that we need to work to solve, such as the economic crisis, but the president gives priority to other political issues.
وبالطبع تأتي على رأس هذه المشاكل أزمة الانتخابات التي تهدد بحرب أهلية.
Of course, on top of these problems is the election crisis that threatens to start a new civil war in the country. The United Nations began to withdraw 460 of its workers out of the 10,000 peacekeepers, police and civilian employees from the Ivory Coast to Gambia.
مدني رغم أنها تتولى حراسة وتارا الذي يقيم في.
The UN also appointed guards to Ouattara, who is staying at one of the major hotels in the capital. Besides that, thousands of armed former insurgents have surrounded Ouattara's residence to protect him.
إقامة وتارا من باب الحرص على سلامته. ويحظى وتارا أيضا بدعم عشرات.
Ouattara has also gained the support of tens of thousands of militants in the Bouaki region, in addition to a number of international organizations. Therefore, he also announced the formation of a new government in the country.
تشكيل حكومة جديدة في البلاد.
If the negotiations are aimed at persuading Gbagbo to give up his position as the elected president, then we welcome them. But if they are aimed at any other thing, we will not care for them.
ولم تتأخر المجموعة الاقتصادية لدول غرب أفريقيا إثر قمة طارئة.
After an emergency summit in the Nigerian capital of Abuja, the Economic Community of West African States, or ECOWAS, hurried to call on Gbagbo to hand over power without any delay. The Nigerian president announced at the conclusion of the summit that ECOWAS suspended the membership of the Ivory Coast.
وعلى غرار مجموعة غرب أفريقيا يوفر.
The international community, including the United Nations, made a similar move and put their support behind Ouattara, recognizing him as the only legitimate president of the Ivory Coast.
لساحل العاج.
The Turkish city of Istanbul is hosting the Bosphorus Regional Cooperation Summit. The summit finalized several cooperation agreements between Turkey and numerous Arab countries. Our correspondent, Mawran Isa, has details on this forum.
ما زالت فعاليات قمة البوسفور العملاقة للتعاون الدولي
For the second consecutive day, Istanbul is holding the Great Bosphorus Summit for Strategic Regional Cooperation. It is proposing and discussing new ideas in order to form strategic partnerships between 26 Arab and European countries. The second round has had positive results, the most important of which has been the signing of a strategic partnership between 4 countries, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. This agreement was preceded by free trade agreements between Turkey and 13 other countries.
تجارة حرة بين تركيا و13 دولة أخرى.
During the summit, 4 private companies from Jordan, Turkey, Syria, and Lebanon signed an agreement. Yesterday, the president was in attendance and signed the agreement as a witness. By implementing what was agreed upon, competition will be created within the private sector of these Arab countries.
القيادة التركية لم تفتأ من المدح والثناء على اقتصادها القوي والذي وصفته.
The Turkish leadership praised and commended its strong economy, which it described as one of the strongest in the world. It reiterated its welcome of varied investors, especially in the city of Istanbul, where the Chamber of Commerce encompasses more than 350,000 trading companies. The Turkish welcome did not only include powerful countries, but reached poor countries as well.
بل طالت الدول الفقيرة أيضا.
بالتأكيد الاحتلال الإسرائيلي يرغب بأن يبقي فلسطين معزولة تماما.
Of course, the Israeli occupation wishes to keep Palestine completely isolated and prevent it from taking advantage of the regional expertise. It also wants to prevent Palestine from cooperating with the Arab world, the region, and the world, in order to keep them from being an integral part of the world, economically, commercially, and even politically. And of course, this is one of the most important challenges faced by the Palestinians.
أهم التحديات التي تواجه الوضع الفلسطيني.
مساعد رئيس الوزراء التركي علي بابا جان كان بمثابة المرشد الاقتصادي للدول.
Turkish Deputy Prime Minister Ali Babacan was somewhat of an economic guide for the countries in attendance, confirming the importance of paying off the country's debt before considering developing its economy. He also confirmed the importance of private companies and development in general, indicating that Turkey's economic development focuses primarily on the private sector, not governmental. He said government investment accounts for only $16 million, whereas private investment has reached $670 million.
فقد بلغت 76 مليون دولار. اليوم الثاني من فعاليات قمة البوسفور العملاقة كان الأكثر زخماً.
The second day of the Great Bosphorus Regional Cooperation Summit was more crowded and important as a number of strategic cooperation agreements were signed between many countries, most notably the quadripartite agreement between Turkey, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon. Mahran Isa, Russia Today, Istanbul.
Syria is the homeland of olive cultivation. According to historical studies, Syria was one of the first countries to plant olive trees.
Because of the nutritious and economic benefits olives and olive oil bring, planting olive trees and producing olive oil has been witnessing significant development in Syria. In Idlib province, the olive harvest season is turning into a local carnival.
Idlib province is known for its long history of producing olives and olive oil. Local people of this region take extremely good care of this blessed tree, which has been part of the history of this place for centuries. The olive tree has been a symbol of affluence, abundance, and perpetual wealth. The olive harvest season is celebrated with the traditions of the farmers who live by the fields. The harvest season brings a special spark to local life, and people celebrate it with delicious foods, especially dedicated to the season.
For us, the olive harvest takes place every year. Of course, these young people came here to help the owner of the land because he doesn't have a big family to collect the olives.
The
young people came from the same village after they were done with the work on their own land, so now they're done collecting olives.
بيجي الطبال اللي هو اللي بيساوي فرح ونشاط للفعالية أثناء قطاف الزيت.
During the collecting process, a drummer comes to spread joy and energize the workers. He makes them move, dance, and creates a happy atmosphere.
الطبال بيعمل لهم هالجو المرح وهيك فبيدبكوا بينبسطوا الشباب والصبايا
They work from morning to night and they get tired, so the drummer's work is to make these young people happy. Afterwards, a vendor comes by and goes around the field selling popular sweets. When everybody is done, they offer the vendor barrels of olives for free as an expression of their appreciation, because this is the land of olives. There's a popular dish that only exists in Idlib province and not in any other place. It's a delicious dish, and those who have tried it can verify this. It is made of oil and pomegranate, and they make it in the press so the olives remain hot.
The olive industry is considered one of the most important agricultural industries in Syria. It has developed immensely in the last several decades, and olive fields now occupy around 647,000 hectares. This blessed tree has been seen as part of the cultural and religious heritage of the Mediterranean people for centuries. It is a symbol of affluence, abundance, perpetual wealth, and peace. Ahmed Sarjawa, Syria TV, Idlib.
The views expressed on Mosaic are from contributing broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible from support of viewers like you. Thank you. Watch Mosaic World News online. Stay up to date with breaking news. Read our blog. Get transcripts of past shows and more at linktv.org/mosaic.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. network dedicated to global and national news, uncompromising documentaries, and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.